Hey guys, welcome back to Cignals Trading Academy. Today we're going to work on trading plans. And why is that? Because once you get your feet under you, you go through the basics of the last video, it's time to formulate a plan. You just can't go in shooting from the hip, spraying and praying, for the best, because it just doesn't work out in the long run for you, probability wise. So, not everybody has like a handwritten plan, like this is the plan. It doesn't work like that. Nothing is set in stone, nothing is these things are ever changing. You want to try to find something, you know, overall that meets your goals, right? And what are your goals? I mean, for me, it really comes down to how do you trade? What is your strategy at the end of the day? Are you a swing trader? Are you a scalper that uses size and only trades a few times a day for, a few ticks and you're out? Are you a day trader and you're trading, 20 times a day, 10 times a day, whatever it is? You know what I mean? There's a few different ways you can go about it. So what are your goals? Do you have to be trying to make X amount of money every day, and no matter what, you're out here, you're trying no matter what? Like a lot of times people who day trade and scalp, they want to be in the market every second of every day. And that, you know, that's a dangerous road to go down. But, if you're really good at what you do, you make it work. But a lot of times you're leaving yourself overexposed. So you need to get your goals in order. You need to figure out what overall you're looking to do with your portfolio. Are you looking to trade in one way or another, and then get good with that? You can obviously scalp and swing trade at the same time, vice versa, whatever. But, usually there's only so much liquidity in a in a portfolio. You don't want to be tying up, all of your margin on trades that, they don't fit your overall goals. So for me, I try to have two accounts. And this is like on the traditional side. I'll have like an account that's, my main account where I'm trading swings and I'm building a portfolio based upon my longer run goals. But then I'll also have a smaller account that I trade maybe for scalps so I'm never commingling the two. So those are my goals. That might not have nothing to do with your goals, you know what I mean? But those are my goals. On the traditional side, I try to keep everything separated, and that's to protect my capital, you know what I mean? And not only that, but not to conflate, one thing with the other. So always make sure you have a clear idea of what your long and short-term goals are. And then from there, you need to focus on what market you're going to trade. Because another thing that people really, in my opinion, mess up with is that they tend to focus on too many markets at once. And when I was first starting on the traditional side, I made that mistake. And, I was trading energy, S&Ps, gold, everything. This is before Bitcoin. So I was everywhere. And you're spreading yourself so thin, attention wise, money wise, and emotionally, psychologically. There's so many things you have to keep on top of. And it's just, it's hard to do. Even if you were the best trader ever, it would be hard to do. You know what I mean? You would be burning it at both ends, kind of. And it does take a physical and a mental toll on you. You can really burn yourself out. So it's very important to focus on specific markets that you can wrap your head around and get, very comfortable with. You just feel like, when you're looking at the screen, it's second nature. Like right now I'm looking at the screen, and, this is a 4-hour spot chart. So it's not really going crazy or moving nuts right now, especially since it's 4:30 Eastern time, and everybody just left their office for the most part. But Bitcoin is my market in crypto, along with like one or two others that I focus on. And those are my markets, and I feel very comfortable looking at them. And, that just comes with A, screen time, and B, getting a trading plan in place, knowing your levels, knowing kind of like, just how the market moves based on, volume coming in and out. It really just becomes second nature when you focus on specific markets. So that would be, what comes after goals. It's just, once you have your ideas of your vision kind of outlined, you just get familiar with your markets. For me, like I said, it's Bitcoin, ETH, and a few others. And then, on the traditional side, it's S&Ps, Qs, and volatility. And I don't really mess with anything else because every time I try, I realize I don't understand the price action as well as I understand the price action. Like for SPY, I understand that price action really, really well. But when I try to trade IWM and Russell 2Ks, it's not the same. And, so get good with one market, you know what I mean? And you'll see your ROI will go up just because you're focusing your energy more there. And once you have something that kind of performs at break even or slightly better, you start to adjust, right? Like, because that's the next portion of this is, what are your setups? What are your entries look like? And it comes down to probabilities and having a plan and trying to develop an edge. And once you can get break even or better, it's now about trying to figure out how to quantify what's working and extract that and develop an edge until that edge doesn't work anymore. And that's where hubris has to really go out the window, because if something's not working, you need to identify that quickly and move on, right? So once you have, again, your overall goals and your markets outlined, and you have that all kind of ironed out, you know how you're going to be approaching your account, in terms of this is a swing account, this is, or whatever, you know what I mean? You got that all ironed out. It's time to figure out where your probabilities are setup wise. And then from there, again, how do we make this better? Always improving, always improving. And a lot of it is, for me, is note taking. I take a lot of notes mentally on the computer, and I like to write. So I always have like a steno pad next to me, and I'm always taking notes, because I'll forget if I don't take notes, because I have so many other things, like so much stuff is going on in my day that if I don't take notes, or I don't, the most successful people I know are always either like voice recording themselves, or leaving themselves an email or a sticky note, or otherwise, like, your brain processes too much information for you to not take notes. So do yourself that favor, take notes, and then start figuring out what works for you. And then once you figure out what does work for you, it really comes down to, again, getting it on paper and going through the process of making it better. So again, not to reiterate, but it's super important, and make sure that it's something that you're constantly improving on. Otherwise, you start to get complacent, and you're never getting to the real goal. For me, I want to be as close to 7 out of 10 as possible for every 10 trades, 7 are winners, 70%. And there are ways to try to make the probabilities work in your favor, but it starts with getting yourself in a position to at least break even, and build upon that to get to 6 out of 10, and then 7 out of 10, and that's ultimately a really, really profitable, situation to be in. Even 6 out of 10, very profitable. So, once you get through that, it's about risk management, and risk management is, in my opinion, probably the most important piece of all of this, because without risk management, there's no money management or position. It's all irrelevant, because if your risk is just not correct, you're not gonna make it. I mean, I hate to be cliche, but you're just not gonna. And realistically, let's look at OHM as an example. I mean, it got absolutely obliterated because people were over leveraged and don't know how leverage works. I mean, people want to claim they're like savant level, traders in this business, right? But most of them haven't been around before 2017. Even the guys that are around prior to 2017, the market's constantly evolving. So, if they're out there using crazy leverage, making things happen, obviously there's a reason. They probably have the money to back it up. But if you really don't have the money to back it up, and you're out here taking what little you have and leveraging every penny of it to borrow against, whatever, so you can get more money to go buy more, the slightest little slip of anything blows you up. And we saw that with Time. We saw that with OHM, all these other, coins for the most part. And, I mean, that is why, had these people had proper risk management, they wouldn't be pulling every single penny they have out, going to some theoretical backing price that doesn't exist, right? And setting their leverage, liquidation price is slightly below that price, like it's even going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, the guys at the top aren't going to rug you either way. So when you have proper risk management, stuff like that doesn't happen. Like, yeah, you may like end up still getting hit temporarily on paper because, obviously there's a liquidation cascade, and you're kind of like, there's nothing you can do about that. It's just like Bitcoin, there's liquidation cascades, and if you hold, you never lose money. And, I've lived through quite a few of these, and, it sucks on paper, but, my long-term goals dictate that I'm holding Bitcoin no matter what. And my short-run goals are basically to protect whatever other things I have going on in my portfolio however I can. And that comes down to my risk management, which is I'm not going to leverage myself beyond, 10x. Like, 10x would be extreme for me to trade on leverage. I don't like doing it because I've lived through this enough where, like, FX native leverage is 50x. You know what I mean? It's 50 to 1. So, it comes with experience. If you feel comfortable doing it and you know how to manage that risk, okay, maybe you are okay. Go ahead and do it. But a lot of times, again, these excessive leverage situations can be avoided had people thought the risk out a little bit more astutely. So, very, 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 very important risk management. And for you, for me, I like to, people say, in our premium and on Twitter sometimes that I'm too conservative. Like, and I think like things I do compared to some of the guys that I know who are actually conservative, it's mind blowing. I really like to be 2 to 1 at all times in terms of risk reward when I'm in a position. Am I going to get stopped out here and there? Yeah, of course. But usually, like, I never deploy all of my capital at one fill price. You know what I mean? Like, that's another thing. Like, a lot of people are shooting all their bullets at one fill price. Like, I'm going all in at this price. Like, they either don't get filled, they get fucking blown out through that level, or, I've always legged in no matter what, unless I'm like scalping and I'm in, I'm out, I'm either stopped or it's working and that's it. A lot of times people just get themselves blown out at a level, like just going all in at a level. I've personally never understood that. That's my plan. That's part of my goals, is to not get blown out at any one level where I'm going to force myself to either get stopped out. And a lot of times these guys don't even use stops. Like, they're just literally going to let themselves get liquidated or their account dwindle to zero. So, this is why risk management is very important, because these are all things you got to think about. Again, I will literally, rather leg in a little higher than my ideal aggregate price and keep buying all the way to my aggregate price or slightly below, knowing that if it goes below a certain threshold, it's invalidated anyway. I'm just going to stop myself. It comes down to having a plan. You have to know this, and you have to. You just can't go in hoping for the best, because hope isn't a strategy. You know what I mean? It's not a trading plan. So, risk management for you, it could be a lot different than what I'm describing, but have something in place. Again, I like to be 2 to 1. So if I buy at 50K, I'm not going to let it really run more than, like, I'm going to give it basically, if I get in at 50 and I want, 10K a coin profit, I'm only giving it, $5,000 room to run. You know what I mean? So that's it. That's the way I look at it. And if I get stopped, whatever. You know what I mean? It is what it is. At least at the end of the day, I didn't just let it like completely run against me, praying for a reverse. Like, see, I was right. Like, no, clearly I wasn't right. I try to pick levels that give me the best, the closest to 7 out of 10 as possible, which is the edges of the profile, right? We'll get into that. But that will come with more of this. We'll get into, believe me. Money management would be the next thing after that, after risk management. So money management, for me, I learned this early on in FX. You got to be taking profits, man. Like, people do not take profits. I've never understood it. Like, I've watched people take 7, 8 figures and vaporize it. Like, just because they refuse to take profits. Like, it's greed. It's human nature to be greedy, and I understand that. You know what I mean? But that also is what separates the boys from the men or the girls from the women in this business, and to be honest with you, if you can't take profits, you probably can't take losses either. So you're just never going to win. Um, so money management is very important. If you're like, there's again a really corny old adage, bulls make money, bears make money, but pigs get slaughtered, man. And it's the God's honest truth, because if you're here, and you're the beneficiary of some 100x coin that just pumps, or a stock or whatever, that just, crazy 100x run out of nowhere, people like usually want to capture those profits. Like if you're, I guess sane, right? But then there are those other guys that literally just let it ride, like, oh, I'm a degen, like it's cool or something. Like, no, man, take that off the table, because you're never gonna build anything substantial in the long run without realizing profit. And I'm not saying like, cut them short the second you get them, but I mean, if something runs 100%, 200%, 300, especially if something's over a 20 bagger and you're not taking profit, at least on half, like, you're crazy. I'm sorry. There's just no sane person that does that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're never going to build anything substantial, ever. There's no exceptions. Like, I mean, eventually probabilities catch up to you. Like, again, it seems very easy in this type of market right now, but a lot of these people have not been in a real bear market, have not lived through, 2008, 9, and even before Bitcoin, like, right as it was coming up, like, 2011, 12, 13 were some crazy times for Bitcoin. But 2014 to 17-ish, it was brutal, okay? And a lot of these people right now wouldn't have survived. And then also this newer class that, is now finally going through a real bear market, has been through it, they've seen a lot, but even them, they don't know what comes. It's hard when you don't have years and years and years of experience behind you. You have to be very careful. You have to manage your money. You have to manage your positions. And at the end of the day, if you don't, you're literally you're gonna find out why people always say these things, because the market will humble you and take your money, and then you're gonna have to work real hard to get it back, and you're gonna really be you don't want to be in that situation where you were up crazy money and you didn't take the profit and it kind of all vaporized on you, or you got liquidated, or you know what I mean? And what could have been, then you get stuck in that, I had this, it'll go back. Like, it's a terrible place to be, man. So money management, very important. And I'm just talking from experience. So at the end of the day, like, if you don't believe what I'm saying, you're going to learn one way or another. You don't have to take my word for it. So, I'm doing this to help people at this point, because, it's very evident that there's a lot of people on YouTube and Twitter that do not give a flying shit about whether you do good or bad in this business. They don't care. They're just trying to sell you something, shill you something. End of the day, man, we offer Cignals.io for free. So, the last piece of it is, what tools do you use for your trade, right? And for me, I'm a volumetric trader. I trade profile setups only, almost like exclusively. Like here, like, this is a pretty balanced profile, and we're running into some, like some split volume. Bid ask is we're getting a lot of bids chasing, and then we have some ask coming down. I mean, it looks like a little, robotic at the moment, but on this 4-hour, it's pretty, we have a pretty D-shaped profile. The symmetry is not bad at all. It's actually skewed a little bit towards the P shape, if anything, maybe, which gives me an indication that we're flagging here into something that may pop higher. So that's just from me looking at the profile, you know what I mean? And, seeing these like spots where we can probably grind higher into the 42s, fill them out, dip back down, because in the next subsequent videos, we're going to go over all markets are just elections, every single market, right? So that's why you need a plan. You need to have goals. You need to have specific markets that you trade, and you need to be very on top of your risk, because at the end of the day, having great setups means diddly if you don't manage risk correctly. And then once you finally have the risk and the positions all figured out, how do you take profits? And then once your profits are actually taken, get the money out of the account and live your life a little bit. not saying vaporize your your work by taking it all out and spending it, but as you're making, I learned this in FX, as you're making money every day, pull some out, because it may not be there tomorrow. I'm telling you, these are things that any guy who's lived, or whoever has lived through, has been around the business long enough will tell you, it's like sales almost. You go on hot and cold streaks sometimes, and it's not even like you go on cold streaks intentionally. It's kind of, things happen. You get in your own head sometimes. So you just, if you stick to a plan and you manage your money and your risk correctly, you don't got to worry about the chances of that 4 out of 10 hitting you kind of in consecutive fashion, where eventually the odds always balance out. If you're consistent and you have a good plan, you have good risk management, entries, and ultimately money management. So make sure you like and subscribe. Our next video, again, will be more about auctions and kind of how markets are, what they do at their fundamental level. And then from there, we're going to get a little bit deeper into profile and, the actual trading components. So stick with us. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Have a great day.